This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. We are going to call our meeting to order. We are recorded and it is a public forum, but I want to make an announcement that Ride and Safe is here and they are recording as well. So just so everyone is aware. So we will get started. Good morning. We will work through our agenda. The first one after call to order is the opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone with public comment? Virtual?
No one.
No one? Okay. No one for public comment. Moving on to agenda item 3 regarding approval of minutes for the May 15th, 2025 meeting. And Anita sent those out ahead of time, and you also should have a copy here for yourselves if you review them. Anyone has questions, comments, edits? No? Okay. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 15th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Second. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any nays? Minutes approved. Moving on to number 4, regarding the nomination and election of a vice chair to serve for the remainder of the current term and through 2026. So George Lasoya was the vice chair and he's had to step down due to conflicts and bylaws of the COG since he's a COG employee. So we are looking for a new vice chair to occupy this seat here. Anyone? Nominations for anyone? Anyone online? It's not too bad, y'all. Yeah. They're right here next to Ed.
If no one else is interested, I don't need to do that. I'm pretty busy, but I'd be glad to help.
Okay. Okay, so we make a motion to approve Daryl as the vice chair. Yes?
I move.
You move, okay. A second? Second? Okay, great. So all in favor of our new vice chair? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have
What
it.
you asked for.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, moving right along through our meeting. The next agenda item is regarding the recommended meeting date changes for the 25-26 year. And Anita will present that for us.
Thank you. So I've kindly requested that our new meeting dates be the first Tuesday quarterly, starting today, July 1st, October 7th, 2025, January 6th, 2026, April 7th, 2026, July 7th, 2026, and October 6th, 2026. I did also want to note that to be counted for quorum, you can attend online with your camera turned on, as Chris and Stephanie are doing right now. The only person per the bylaws that has to be present is the chair. Thank you.
I will be here, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So if that's a conflict or you want to propose a different schedule, that's what we're asking for, is to propose the regular meeting schedule the first Tuesday of each month, beginning with the first month of the quarter.
Does anyone have any comments or suggestions, changes? Anybody? Works? Okay, so let's take a motion to approve the meeting date changes to ones presented by Anita.
I move.
First motion? Second?
I'll second.
Second? All in favor of scheduling the meetings as Anita proposed?
Aye.
Any nays? No. All right, motion approved. Thank you. For next up on our agenda, we have the item regarding the development of the Regional Public Transportation Coordination Plan for fiscal year 27 through 31. I needed to again.
All right, inside of y'all's packet and on the agenda, there's some major deliverables that are going to be due for this new grant, which was awarded $120,000. And that is for FY 27 through 31, the planning grant. The work officially began on June 1st, and it is scheduled for completion by October 31st of 2026, with the final approval from TxDOT expected in January of 2027. And that includes our complete region. The first thing that is really up for discussion is the development. Well, I'm going to switch over here to the action needed because it gets a little bit complicated. And so I'm going to describe what the action needed is first, and then we'll go back and look at the bullet points. We're going to discuss whether to establish a steering committee to oversee the development of the FY 27 to 31 Regional Public Transit Coordination Plan, or proceed under the existing RTAG bylaws, inviting new stakeholders, including for-profit providers, maybe some taxi cab organizations, Lyft, Uber, with the intent to update our bylaws for a broader representation per the coordination plan guidebook. So that's actually that first bullet point there. Go right here, establishing a steering committee or operate under the existing bylaws.
Does this come as a suggestion or an idea that this is something that's needed? Where did this come from?
Well, I was looking in depth at our bylaws, and our bylaws are very linear as it comes to member representation. And so it spells out who we can and cannot have as our stakeholders. To really, with all the changes and the innovation happening in the transportation industry, we would want a broader representation, either here on our committee or on our advisory group, or we develop a steering committee that allows for that broader representation.
Thank you. Makes sense to me.
So the decision goes back to, do we want to establish a steering committee, or do we want to operate under the existing bylaws and then expand those bylaws, update them basically, for what's happening in our region with transportation?
I had a question then. So would the steering committee include current members of the group and then others, or would it be a completely separate group other than us that would oversee the development of the plan?
We can totally write it the way that y'all feel best suits what's happening in our region.
And so I was just thinking that if we're going to take a subset of our group and add new people, we might as well just take our whole group and add new people, because that keeps all the representation we have and then adds to it, as opposed to we select a group, and there may be some stakeholders that are excluded from the steering committee, even if they're still on the committee.
Yes. And I'm sort of like administratively looking deep into the guidebook for this, to write and develop this plan. That's where I'm leaning towards, mainly because if we develop a plan that includes other stakeholders outside of our current membership, and then we close out the steering committee, then how are we going to implement the plan successfully without them? Would you like to add anything to that, Your Honor?
Well, I can try. Yeah, I mean, you know, this is a long action item, of course, but at the end of the day, it's the RTAG's decision whether you'd like to have a steering committee, which, like Anita said, would be a few members of the RTAG and then some of the outside stakeholders. But in the guidebook, which is where this all stemmed from, there is a direct mention of some service providers that are not included in our bylaws. So we either do the steering committee with the current RTAG makeup, or we do some bylaws revisions to be brought before the RTAG at the next meeting for action, with the understanding that as we move through this planning process, those individuals that are listed in the draft bylaws, even before a vote happens, are going to be part of the conversation as we start ramping up our planning activities.
With guidance to include those members just
Correct.
in the regular advisory council and not a separate committee? Is that the guidance?
The guidance is kind of vague, but, you know, like Anita said, you know, once you have the steering committee and then you develop the plan and then you identify who is going to be charged with what, if those members are no longer a part of the advisory group, you know, is the juice worth the squeeze for them?
They lose their voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got a question. It sounds like this could be kind of a fundamental shift, and that's okay. But I'm curious if staff has a recommendation or any insight as to what you think would be more efficient, which approach would be more efficient.
My thought would be to amend the bylaws to include those groups. And the reason being, you know, we go through this, if we go through this entire planning cycle and process, and we've done the stakeholder group, and stakeholder groups are great. They get a lot accomplished. And then the next time we do the plan, we have to do the same thing, or there's additional guidance, or in the meantime, if there's guidance added that says these folks have to be a member of the advisory group for your region, then we have to go and make the bylaws revision anyways. And that's just looking, you know, into the future, which nobody can see into the future.
So if we add members to the group, and once this plan is done and they're members of the group going forward, meeting quorum, is that a concern? Or since we have a larger group set, would it stay, you know what I'm saying? Like to be able to meet quorum at each meeting?
I would have to
Yeah, you
chime
can.
in. I don't think it's going to be a problem because the people that are speaking and pouring their heart into a plan, they're going to want to see that plan come to fruition. And so today our quorum, we have 13 active stakeholders, voting stakeholders, and we needed 8 to make quorum, and I think we have 9.
Okay.
So I feel like that's a big average.
Okay.
And
Just trying to
everyone
know
is
that.
everyone is very vested, and that's one of the things about the quorum is having the ability to be online with your camera turned on. Really helps us because we're a very large region.
Perfect.
Question. So in adding to the group, are you wanting to target a very specific, like into transportation? And I'm still learning the region. So are we looking at, if there are taxi companies here or taxi organizations, other TNC providers, Uber, Lyft, NEMT, and does that include like EMS? I mean, that may be a whole other different agency, but what other, are we looking at transportation specifically for this?
Yeah, I think what we would be looking at are basically the things you've identified, but without the guidebook in front of me, my thought would be we take that whole subsection and try to identify potential members for the RTAG from that subsection we're trying to address through this subsection, and reach out. And I know taxis just sticks out of my head because it's for profit. It goes against everything that I'm used to saying sitting here, but you know, I think we take that and then we identify who could potentially be on. I mean, we still have a lot of vacancies on the RTAG,
Yes.
so these could potentially fill some of those voids, and lead to some better conversations to address the needs.
Personally, I don't see us expanding our stakeholder, our voting member beyond 20. Right now, we have up to 20. We have 13 filled voting members, so we have 7 vacancies. And so filling those vacancies with the future idea of what's good for the region and what's really happening inside of the region with for-profit, non-emergency, EMS, and anything else that's outlined in the guidelines.
Could part of the bylaws be to have an ad hoc committee that would just meet, I don't know how often it would be, to advise this group from people who are not nonprofit? Are all of us nonprofits here?
We're not.
No, okay, then never mind. We've already got, membership from the profit sector. Okay, good. Never mind my question.
Yes, George?
So, I guess from the RTAG's perspective, for a lot of us that are nonprofits, our focus are really looking at serving our clients and having proper access. And as we know, funding initiatives and things are changing as we speak now. From a profit world, providers, we're always looking at reimbursements are always being cut, undermining for-profits or serve the industry versus, we're looking to options of ride shares and not ride shares, but volunteer drivers and stuff. Is there a conflict between, how we are trying to look at other options to help support our disability population rather than the transportation entities?
I don't think it's a conflict as much as an opportunity for us to have those conversations to see how the for-profit and the nonprofit can work together to bridge the gaps that are encountered in the region.
Right, but we're not going to address the issues of the lack of funding or support.
Well, I don't think we're ever going to address the issue of lack of funding, unfortunately. That's just how it is. I think what it does is it allows us to have conversations, develop strategies to mitigate the loss of funding and the reduction of funding as it occurs, with everybody being on the same page that this is the strategy that we have in the region to ensure that we're providing the most clients with services that we can for the dollars we have, with buy-in from the profit and nonprofit sectors.
And I'll add that a few of the other organizations that I'm a part of, that's part of our strategy is working with the nonprofits and the for-profits, because there is a collaboration to where we can work together to bring our transportation initiative to our senior population. And that's one of our biggest goals. And so I also serve on the Transportation Alliance and MTAC. And even though and the TTA is all levels of transportation. So, and then it goes from taxi to rideshare to non-emergency, all the way to, limo, on demand, all of that. So there's always that collaborative of how do we look for that grant funding and then try to focus it for our senior, because that population is only growing, and we're seeing it to where they don't, even though they have the ability to drive, they don't want to. So they're looking for transit, they're looking for on-demand, they're looking for other ways to move about their communities. So I think it could be a really good thing, just because I'm seeing it in some of the organizations that I'm already in.
Well, I still don't know.
I do agree on addressing funding. That's what the plan is for. When transit agencies reach out to write our grants for funding, that's what we use the plan for. Anytime we write a grant, we have to dig into that plan to find out where those gaps are, and we have to use statements from the plan to write our grants to get funding.
Right.
So.
And also, who represents the consumer, our disabled population? I think.
Felicia is a transit.
Okay. So, as things that have been popped up since working with some of the initiatives with the Texas Veterans Commission grant and everything else, from a pure disability and access component, a lot of our veterans, that can't be transported because they don't have a person that could go to the do that medical treatment, surgery, have somebody with them and then transport back has been, it's an issue that still has not been resolved. You know, county, crossing into county lines from, you know, the veterans need to have access to Georgetown if they're living. You know, it depends if you're in Round Rock and it's closer to go to Georgetown. These are things of advocacy. That's the other component, I think, that we're probably missing a little bit more understanding those situations. We bring problems here, but I don't think we properly address that component. The user and the problems with transportation from the day-to-day tendency on it.
Those are those gaps that we need to
Yes.
address.
How will that be addressed as far as?
Well, I think that's going to be part of the plan. And if you, transportation needs and gaps is actually one of the bullet points that we're going to be speaking about and doing an assessment, a region-wide assessment, and starting with that. And I know that the implementation of the 22 through 26 addresses some needs and gaps. But I think that we really can have a more robust, solutions-oriented strategy moving forward. The transportation needs in our community, in our region are great. We all know that. And I think that the more people that we bring to the table, the more opportunity that we will have to close some of those gaps. Yes?
We add to that, Anita, because I think the attractiveness of bringing on for-profit or expanding our board composition would lend itself to, I would say, strengthening future grant writing opportunities.
It would.
To show more collaboration and the ability to fill gaps if funding was secured. So I think that would be another advantage of expanding, in my view.
Does that answer some of your questions, George?
Yeah, I mean,
Are you looking for maybe another writer in addition to, I mean, are you looking for maybe more individuals that take transportation to also be on the committee? Is that what you would?
Felicia, is there anything of concerns that we're not addressing from
From a consumer standpoint,
Yeah.
basically it's the same issues in rural areas. We don't have, we don't have enough, put it that way. And so I get a lot of calls on a daily basis of individuals that just, they're stuck in homes, and so that's a major concern for me on my end. Those individuals just trying, like I said, to get to doctor's appointments and things like that, not having enough in the area. What I've been doing is when I talk to community reps, I found a couple more transportation providers, so to speak, but they're for profit.
Yeah.
So I just need to know how would I bring that to the table for them to come and actually apply to be a part of and help with the gaps.
I think what we're seeing from prevalence of aging alone, we don't have support systems. And if I'm an individual who's lost my spouse and then you can't go with me, how do you rent a person to come in and be that surrogate for you? Because hospitals require someone to be there. These are things that I think they're going to get worse.
So I think that all goes into part of the makeup of the plan, but what we need to be focused on right now is, do we want to revise the bylaws, or do we want to say we're going to do a steering committee? That's the nature of this conversation right here. The intricacies of the plan and the gaps, that we've all been sitting around the table for years now, discussing that haven't changed. We haven't brought any solutions to. Those will be included in the plan. And additional gaps that have been identified, like you've referenced, will be included. But right now, I think we need to determine, do we need to do a steering committee or stakeholder group standalone, or revise the bylaws with the understanding that as we're going through the process of revising, we're going to start inviting some of these folks to these conversations that we're having until the bylaws are adopted and approved by the advisory group and then the CTCOG.
I think if you're saying there are already openings anyways, if we revise the bylaws to allow the for-profits or whatever that looks like, I think that's valid.
Yeah,
to do that.
I think we can easily modify the bylaws to include those things. We're not doing a whole member, a whole makeover of the membership. So I think we can easily identify not specific providers, but that those that are listed in the coordination guidebook, and we can include them appropriately in the bylaws and bring that back to the board.
I don't think we're losing anything.
No.
Going that way. A subcommittee might be icing on the cake, but really we're just talking about us inviting for-profit companies to come and help fill these 7 vacancies. That seems like
I
the
sit on
simplest way.
West Texas and North Texas, and all of those entities are involved in our regional formations
Do you have for-profit providers?
in both of those areas,
Thank you.
North Texas and West Texas.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that we ought to be talking to them and working with them. I think the question is, how big do you want this group to be? And are you going to expand the membership in the bylaws beyond 20? Are you thinking about those 7 slots that are open at the moment being filled that way, or a possibility of them being filled that way?
I personally don't think that we need to expand our membership group beyond 20. We have 7 slots that have been open, and there's opportunity for 7 providers out in our region. And if we can successfully fill those slots and revisit in a year or 2 and see, see what it looks like. But I don't think that we need to expand the actual membership count beyond 20.
If you're going to review or redo the bylaws, whatever that's called, you can also redo what your quorum is. If your quorum is hard to get, hard to reach at this point, it doesn't have to be a certain percentage. A lot of people think it does. It doesn't. I have a board of 15, but I have a quorum of 6. And we can meet that every time.
Right. Well, our quorum currently, and this was just updated, I think, in last year, but it's 50% plus 1. So I feel like that is, we can accomplish that confidently. That's where I'm at on it. Y'all's faithful attendance really shows that. And then we have proxies. But we have some alternatives if quorum becomes an issue.
I'll make a motion to take the path of just amending the bylaws for now, and then address it again later if we need to, as far as the subcommittee. So, however you want to word it.
Motion,
Second.
second. All in favor of the motion to amend the bylaws to include other for-profit agencies in our advisory group? Any nays? No? Okay, motion passed. So we will have them amend our bylaws and include new members. Thank you. Yes.
The other items on this particular agenda item, I'm going to go back to what we'll be voting on, is we need to approve the division of work for the FY 27 to 31 Regional Public Transit Coordination Plan. This is the same plan that we'll be amending the bylaws to. Assigning tasks such as transportation provider surveys, service mode analysis, public engagement, geographic assessments to the stakeholders, and trying to determine, will a consultant handle what part, and what part can the stakeholders handle themselves? What part will staff handle, CTCOG staff? And so we're going to go back to these list right here. The transportation provider survey, inside of the plan, they have outlined something very specific what they're looking for. And so I feel as an administrator of this group and staff support, I can put that together pretty easily and send it out to y'all to fill out. So that's the first one. The transportation service modes and models, that is going to need to take place between August the 1st and October 31st of this year. And then the audit of public transportation infrastructure, that is also on that same timeline. I'm not sure if I can accomplish that to the degree that needs to happen. So I think that working with a consultant would be in our best interest. If that's something that y'all would be interested in having done for your agencies as well, because you would be participating and sharing that information with the consultant. The third part is the transportation needs and gap assessment. And I think that that information can be handled through the public engagement events, through surveys, and staff, CTCOG staff can manage that aspect. The geographic area assessment, that was under a different deliverable where we would hire a drone operator and come out and really look at our region as a whole, specifically targeting some bus stops and what the regions look like. And so that would also be a consultant. So I sort of like, I've looked at these aspects of the plan in depth and what I thought that staff could handle and then what I thought would be great for consultants. So that's would be the next.
One of the things that the group probably didn't want to hear, but I think your consultant might be really good at, is an AI taking of all of that information and developing what a draft plan would look like. It would address all of that, all of those data points that you put into that AI discovery. AI can do an awful lot to help. It's a scary stuff, but it's already here. And if a consultant, if you get a consultant, please get one that does understand the power of that to solve problems. Because there are things that it'll come up with that we've never thought of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if we do the consultant, is there a bid to send out to bid for consultants to apply, or do you have one in mind?
No,
Okay.
we don't have one in mind. We'd be required to send out an RFP.
But depending on the cost, we have to follow the state cost procurement policies.
And I have a question in terms of the cost. Is that something which we have funded, for example, through the current plan, the funding for preparation for the next plan, or would that be something that we would need then to apply for grants for? In terms of the consultants, that is.
Right. We've already been awarded $120,000 to implement this plan, and that part of that $120,000 would be to work with the consultant.
Excellent.
Good.
I would defer to the expert too, to hear on what your recommendations would be for this.
My recommendation would be for the RTAG membership to approve the use of staffing as appropriate, as well as consultants as appropriate, determined by staff to accomplish the goals.
Comments? Suggestions? I'm going to take a vote to go with your plan to staff and consultants where appropriate and suggested. Make a motion to approve their suggestions and go with staff and consultants where appropriate for our plan.
So moved.
All in favor? Any
Aye.
nays? Oh, someone virtual?
I didn't catch.
I said aye. Sorry.
Who was the first person?
Oh, first, I'm sorry, second?
Oh, I'll second.
Second? Now all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion so carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So moving on to discussion item number 7, coordination and implementation of fiscal year 22 through 26 regionally coordinated transportation plan.
Would you like to go ahead and talk about our transportation newsletter, Ashlyn, please?
Yeah, I can. So for the June 2025 transportation letter, I completely revamped it. I gave it a makeover, if you want to use those words. I added a subscribe button to show support for our subscriber growth. Between May and June of this year, in May we had 119 opens, and then in June we had 162, so you can kind of see that increased a lot. I also went through our contact list and cleaned up our bounce rate by removing people who had been unsubscribed or removed from our contact list. Following the addition of the subscribe button, we've gained 1 new subscriber, and the tracking is now it's a lot easier. So go and look on the reporting for constant contact to kind of see who subscribed, who unsubscribed, and kind of clean it up that way so we have a lower bounce rate. And there's also a notable shift in how subscribers are using the newsletter. Last year, I want to say in June, we had the 97% on desktop and 3% mobile. This year in June, we had 86 on desktop and 14 on mobile. So this kind of tells us that we need to change the way we're doing the newsletter a little bit, just to kind of cater towards people who are using it on their mobile devices. And that is all I have.
By the way, everyone, this is Ashlyn. She's new to the team.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for opening up the newsletter.
I have a question. When we send out a newsletter on constant contact, of course, we don't only do it for RTAG. When somebody opens it on their phone, is that a mobile version or is it the desktop version people are seeing on their phone? Does it automatically, I guess, recalibrate so that it'll show up right on somebody's?
I think it automatically recalibrates.
Okay.
But I can confirm that.
I was just curious because I know there at one point in time, newsletters we were doing wouldn't show up properly on the phone. And then they would, but they would just be a little off. So I just don't know how that technology works, I guess.
Was anyone in the room at the 14% that opened it up on mobile? Walter's looking now.
I'm trying to look now.
I think that it kind of redoes it for the mobile, but the layout's definitely a little different. I opened it on my phone as well, and the pictures weren't in the same place. They were like with the same like grant that they were for, but they weren't in the same spot that they were if you opened it on your desktop. So it changes it, but not completely.
It's a little bit reorganized, but yet you can see all the same things. That's what I remember from when I opened it on my computer.
Yeah, I was just trying to make sure that everything's still visible.
Everything shows up. There's not anything that's like not showing on my phone.
Ryan, I was gonna ask a question on the newsletter. I know it's focused on all the K-Tempo activities, not just, or is this RTAG related?
It's RTAG related.
Okay.
I mean, it may have K-Tempo information in it because K-Tempo falls within the boundary of CTCOG region, but it's a regionally focused newsletter.
Any other questions, comments for Ashlyn? Good job, thank you. Moving on to number 8, discussion regarding the survey results regarding school-age children, pre-K through 12, with school transportation needs.
You want me to present or is the slides available? Awesome.
I can move the slides if you'd like to just share, Stephanie, if that's okay.
Perfect. Okay. Next slide. So just a quick overview. This was a survey that we created to help us objectively capture the impact of the transportation changes for our children and kids under 5. Originally, that was the scope. We kind of expanded it to kind of look at broader section over the Hill Country Community Action Area. Next slide. I already said the why. The intended audience was, I initially had started, and then we opened it up to all of the school districts in our region, which was quite a big list. So if anybody has looked at the survey, it's pretty extensive. The initial survey, we were going to put it out for 30 days, but that didn't seem like a lot of time because everybody's out for school break. So we have put it out through the first 2 weeks of school. So somewhere around the beginning of September is when we'll end the survey. The original reason we put it out, because we were getting a lot of feedback that kids were not getting to school, especially our Head Start locations. So we just wanted to see kind of the feedback by putting out a survey. On this slide kind of shows the questions that we asked in our survey, you know, the residing counties, the school districts, the zip code, so we can kind of narrow it down to very focused areas, ages and grades of the children in their households, their current transportation modes, and if they needed any assistance and what types would be helpful for them, and if there were any accessibility needs. Responses to date. So we've had it out there for about 3 weeks now, and we've only gotten 45 responses. Most of the people that have responded, 51% of them are Head Start parents. The top responses coming from Coryell County, Milam County, and Bell County. So we're looking for, we're getting a lot more feedback from San Saba vocally. So I'm hoping that they start participating in that survey so we can get it actually on the survey. Initial results. So 60% right now are saying that there's not really an issue. But if you drill down and you look at the 40%, at least parents are having an issue with transportation at least once a month. And if you drill down a little bit further, next slide, you can see that they're having car problems, scheduling conflicts, or they've just no money for gas. Next slide. So when we asked for the assistance types, 82% requested some type of assistance getting gas cards. Shuttle or van service came in at 51%, and then public transportation came in at 40%. Next slide. Just some takeaways. I wanted to tell you that we did leave a little dialogue box at the bottom of the survey so that our parents could tell us their stories. And there was some really compelling stories. There's a lot of single parent households that are working 2 jobs just to keep things normal in the households. There's brothers and sisters taking up roles as parents to drop off their younger siblings at school. And then there's like divorced parent households where shuttling kids from mom's household to dad's household, and they're just trying to keep it all level set and normal for them. So then our transportation issues start factoring into some of these use cases. So I think the stories drive the mission, and so from there, we're going to continue to capture more information. We're looking at grants that would support some rideshare or some van pools, and hopefully make some changes in this area soon. So that was quick. Any questions?
Do you plan on extending it to other ISDs like Temple and Belton? I noticed they weren't on there unless I missed it.
We can. We haven't heard any issues. It was kind of the counties that were kind of actually, advertising that there were some issues. We can always add more ISDs on there, but I could use your help getting that transportation survey out there. Right now, we've put it on Facebook, we've put it on our newsletter. I think it's been sent out via email to everyone. So, and any way that we can just get your help to get it out there, the more feedback we get, the better we can, serve the people in our area.
Do they write in the school district that they're in, or do they click on a button?
They click on the button.
If we send it out, it's okay. So there's an others tab and they type it in?
Yeah, right now, yes. And there's not been any others that hasn't been included in the list.
Okay.
And I hope by the next meeting, we'll have the full survey and I'll be able to share the results of the full survey.
Stephanie, just to clarify, this is not including children in the rural areas that use their school district buses and transportation. It's issues beyond that.
Yeah, we're just looking in general to capture what's kind of going on, because we do know that there are school buses that offer transportation for kids. It's mostly the kids in the gap, our Head Start kids, our kids that maybe don't have bus service available to them. Maybe at one point was taking public transportation to get to school, and now that might not be available.
Any other questions or comments for Stephanie?
I would be interested in knowing how they transport Head Start children because of the rigorous requirements for Head Start dollars in transportation needs. Because if you don't have a bus monitor, you can't put a Head Start kid on there. If you don't have the right kind of seat belts for different ages, like those 5 point whatever they are, it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
The HOP has worked with us beautifully and we've had people buy the correct car seats for our families so that the HOP doesn't have to have 5 different sizes in the bus to transport our kids, but then the parent rides with them because the parent has to check them in whenever they get there. So I don't know how you do it in a rural area, especially, and take care of all those requirements.
I agree. That's why we're kind of starting our fact-finding gathering, because we've not had to do this previously.
Does it have an age limit on your survey? Like, because most kids will graduate at 18, but then you've got the kids with disabilities that stay till 22. So does the survey include 18 plus students for them, for families to fill out the survey?
I believe there's an other button under age, but if there's not, we can add one. It actually starts at 6 weeks old because that's when our early Head Start children start going into school. And right now, we're kind of targeted seniors, but if we need to extend that, we can also extend that.
Okay, I think that would be, for the population that we're serving, if we could extend it to 22 if we're targeting school, because that's where a lot of the need starts to arise, is that transition piece.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
My name's Tony Ossom, I'm with the HOP. So the reason why the HOP got out of doing school children in a rural area is due to the fact that our buses, it would actually take about 2 hours to pick up and drop off children at the school districts. So when you're talking about 2 hours taken away from a public transit system, that's a long, extremely long time for us to be out of service, just for transporting school children. The reason why we're out for so long is because the buses were put in a line with the parents to go pick up the children. So when we're in that line, we don't have a priority to get in and out. So by the time our buses make it over to that school line, which now there is like 100 cars before the school buses can get over, our buses can get over there. And then it would have to travel along that line all the way to pick up the school kids. And if they're not out in that time period, then we're stuck either having to go back through that line, or we have to drop those children off and come back to the school district to pick up the second half of the kids. So that was our struggle, and that's why Hill Country Transit District and HOP decided in the rural area, we were no longer going to be able to provide rural public school kids anymore. It's because of that. And then the same thing with the rule for the Head Start. It became more and more stringent on us to be able to try to get the children in and out and on time. The same thing, because that's what kind of delayed us sometimes getting over to school, because we were waiting on the Head Start. So that, as said, again, it consumed 2 hours in the evening and about 2 hours in the morning time to drop children off. So if there is some way the school district can help those that are helping us, helping them to provide that service, then it would probably be a more appealing, because if you do even a ride share, back at a ride share, they're gonna be stuck in the same mode of having to be sitting there and waiting to try to pick up those children. So that's the challenge that we felt, and that's where we felt we just couldn't continue that challenge, because we're really there for public transportation service, not for school children.
So Tony, are these independent school district policies, or is it statewide policy? Do you know, did anybody ever try to have conversations?
We did. We tried to have conversations with all the ISDs that we were transporting in, and all the ISDs said the same thing, that they cannot break their policy about where the buses, what can go into their school bus line. And that is the school buses.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Other questions for Stephanie, comments?
We have lots of work to do.
Thank you so much for presenting.
Of course, thank you.
Okay. Discussion item number 9 regarding quarterly update from Central Texas Rural Transit District.
Mine's just quick. We're starting to make progress and getting our name out there. We did get the new sign up at the San Saba office. We are working on, we've got the Center for Life Resources in the building at San Saba. Since we are not there other than the drivers. JR has an office there. He's in and out of sometimes. I'm over there sometimes. But we have our admin offices in Early and Coleman. So there's a big office in San Saba with 2 drivers there. So we have Center for Life Resources is now there, and hopefully the Department of Human Resources will join us there as well. We're hoping that that will happen in the next year or so as well. We're doing a lot of outreach. As you see, our numbers are still small, but we're hoping they'll grow. We did this mail out. Quite a few customers have called in and said, hey, we got your postcard in the mail, and we would like to try your service. So they didn't know we were in the area, and so that was a really good idea, and it's really helped because quite a few called in and said, I got your card, I didn't know. So that was a really good deal. So, but that's all I've got for right now.
Questions for Rhonda? Comments? Oh, moving right along today. Thank you so much for presenting. Next is item 10, discussion item regarding quarterly update from the Hill Country Transit District, highlighting the HOP survey.
Daryl Bertner with Hill Country Transit District. I'm just going to present the quarterly report, and then Tony will get into a couple more details regarding rural. So, in general, as you know, we've launched the microtransit service first at Fort Cab, then in the urban district, and then on March 1st, we launched it in the rural district as well. And I have to say it's going very well. In terms of ridership numbers, now these numbers are just for January, February, March, but so first quarter, unfortunately, we're at that time of year where we're a full quarter behind. But so microtransit in the urban side was 91,165. These are passenger trips. The regional coordinator, which is the urban, connector. So that's the commuter route, if you will. It runs up and down 14 and 35. 8,000 there, so that totals up to just over 99,000. If you multiply that out times 4 quarters, extrapolate it out for the entire year, that puts us at just under 400,000 passenger trips in the urban side of the house. On the rural side, we just started that in March, but that has also picked up another almost 1,200 rides, which multiply that out over 4 quarters, you're at 4,688. You add those together for rural and urban, puts you at about a little over 401,000 passenger trips. And that does not include Fort Cavazos, which was 250,000 for the year. So that 401,000 plus the 250,000 puts you at about 651,000 projected for the first year of that, which is quite good, especially compared to our numbers in 23 were 285,000. So it's going very, very well. Some of the other key performance indicators that we go by, on-time performance, we're at 85.4% on-time performance. The mean wait time is 13 minutes and 24 seconds, so much, much quicker than back in the fixed route days, which was minimum an hour, sometimes 2. Customer reviews, positive customer reviews, we're at 95% on those. Trip lengths, only 0.4% of the total passenger trips was over a half an hour. So by far, they're less than a half an hour trip, getting people where they need to go. And then customer complaints, that's also a really good number. It was out of every 100,000 passengers, it's 0.06% complaints. So 6/100ths of 1% complaints there. So again, 63 complaints out of that 100,000. So these numbers are really going well. Rural has been challenging. We started out with rural doing microtransit in the county seats for the most part, and then demand response in the rest of the county, and then also a regional connector. And we've only been doing it since March, but we're still trying to dial that in. I'm going to turn it over to Tony. He's recently done a survey, and
Well, we started a survey.
correct.
We haven't completed it.
That's true.
So we just initiated a survey. We're going to start going into some town hall meetings in the middle of the month throughout the whole region. And we basically put out 4 questions that we wanted to ask everybody. One is an urban question, and that one is the urban regional commuter. And urban regional commuter, what we found out that the ridership that we do have on that regional commuter could be more efficient instead of running 6 buses, because the number of people inside those buses at any given time is a little low. That we can probably do the same thing with 4 buses, and that would increase the time by, I think, it's like 4 minutes in between intervals of the buses. So it shouldn't impact too many of the customers, but we want to ask everybody at least what their comment is about that in this public involvement. Topic 2 we have is to replace the rural regional commuters with the demand response. So currently in the rural divisions, what we had devised was a regional commuter between Cameron going into Temple, and then from Lampasas going into Killeen, and then Gatesville going into Temple also. The ridership that we expected is just not as high as we would like it to be. So what we've decided to do, instead of incorporating, causing that bus to go up and down a highway with possibly being empty, what we're going to do is just basically turn it into a demand response. So therefore, the clients will have to call us, and then we'll schedule that bus to do the trip then, versus it just doing it constantly on its own. So that's one of the changes that we're asking. Again, we got to ask the customers what they want to do, and we're finding out some of them may not exactly like where those buses are going at. So we're also asking them, if we had that commuter running, where would you prefer that commuter to go? So that's what we're also trying to ask a little bit, because we believe that's part of why the ridership is slightly lower. than typical. A lot of clients also don't like the fact that they have to change buses, so we do have it where they do come into the urbanized system and have to connect into the urbanized system, because we're trying to become one complete region of transportation services. So some of the clients, the rural clients, are just so used to getting picked up at their door and taken straight to where they're going to, and of course getting picked right back and bring them all the way home. That's what they're very much used to, but it very much is ineffective as far as cost. So we're trying to do a cost savings to help other people than just the onesies and twosies that we normally used to do before. We're also changing our fare structure. So currently our fare structure is if they ride microtransit, and this is just a rural division. So currently in microtransit, they get paid $2 to ride on a microtransit with discount for seniors, veterans, disabilities, et cetera. There's, I think, 10 or 11 different discounts that we have. So those are just in the microtransits. Then we have the demand response. So that's anybody that's outside of the county seats. Anybody needing a trip outside there is what we call demand response. Meaning you have to call us and we'll set up the trip, or use the app to set up the trip. That has to be done 24 hours in advance, and that costs $4. So anybody, we're trying to add in logics of distance that we would have to travel to offset that cost of that trip. And the last portion of it is we have the commuter. That commuter trip was $6 going from the county seats all the way to the urbanized zones. So what we're wanting to change, and we're pretty sure everybody's going to agree with this, we're going to take that $6 and take it away. We're not going to have that anymore. We're going to make the demand response, so it's only going to be $4 to do that. And then what we're going to do is also not have where you had to call 24 hours in advance. Now you can just do a same day. So you can call up, and if the bus is available, we're going to go ahead and do that trip, et cetera. So that's what the whole fare structure is kind of doing. In saying that, and the last thing we're doing is we already did the county seats, but in Milam County, they have two major towns, Rockdale and Cameron. So I don't know if you guys have heard on the news, but there's a big battle between the fact that, Rockdale doesn't get the same service as Cameron. Cameron, why do they get paid $2 and we have to pay $4? Well, based on funding that we had, we were only allocated to be able to do one microtransit zone. So what we're proposing is possibly taking Rockdale and making it a microtransit zone. So therefore, those that travel are going to be in Rockdale will have the same exact fare structure as in Cameron. So only have to pay $2 with the discounts, etc. Our demand response does not get discounts, and discounts is because the reason why we chose to do that just because of the fact of the actual miles that we're traveling outside of those rural areas to try to help us with that cost, because that's quite a bit of a distance when you go from one side of the county into the county seat, or one side of the county out of the county area. So that's why we have done that. But that's the survey that we're putting out. Again, when we have the discussions, they have been on the buses, the drivers have been handing them out. We've published it on our website, and we're actually going to have in public forums to be able to have these cards available for us to give out. We also have set up where we're going out to each of the counties. We have different events that we're going to participate in, to also be able to discuss with everybody and talk with everybody about these changes and this involvement. The biggest one we got coming up is the Spring Hoe in Lampasas, so we'll be out there all 4 days for the Spring Hoe Festival. And then we're going to do the farmers market in Burroughs Brewing in Salado, and we're trying to set one up for the farmers market up in Gatesville. So that's our intent. We are decided to go fare free during this time period, so we can try to get everybody over to our sites as much as possible that have the event. So we made it fare free so they can come and attend to some of the events that we're proposing, and also to be able to come to our public events when we start doing the town hall meetings, have that discussion.
That's July.
That's July. So with that, so one of the biggest things that our general manager he wants me to present to you guys is effective 1 August. We are no longer going to be transporting the non-emergency medical transportation program. So we are not going to be a provider for them. Now, I understand that those trips will still go, it's just we won't be able to provide for it. So it'll be somebody else that comes in. I don't know. I've been out of the train. what are the companies called Lone Star Transportation, all those MedLib, those companies will start picking up majority of the trips. So we've already given our 30-day notice, our board has approved of it. The reason why we're getting out of that is because we've discovered that it's just not cost effective. It's costing us more money to provide service for those trips than it is anything else, and it's just why we continue to do it if we're taking a loss on a contract that we don't have to do it. And it really impedes the microtransit. So for instance, the medical contract, the Medicaid contract requires us, if the person is not there, we must wait a minimum of 10 minutes. And 10 minutes in transportation world is like forever and a day. So therefore, we have to sit there and wait, and people are missing their appointments. And that's why we're getting some of the comments that we're getting. So, hey, why you got the coding? Why are you waiting so long for this person, but not us? Therefore, Hill Country Transit decided not to go or pursue that.
I would add to that also to add a little scale in your minds on that non-emergency medical transportation issue, the reason we dropped that. This goes back a long time, and some of you were around and you probably remember, I used to talk about non-emergency medical back in 2014. We contracted directly with Health and Human Services, but prior to 2014. But in 2014, Health and Human Services went to a broker system where they brought in brokers. And so then we started, if the broker is here, we were contracted with the broker, who in turn is contracted with Health and Human Services. So like any good middleman, they took their profit out of the middle, and usually their subs there. So we started losing money at that point. And when that change went into effect, we started losing money at that point. Back then, we were doing almost $4 million a year in non-emergency medical transportation. And since 2014 till June 12th, just this past couple weeks ago, it declined from almost 4 million down to somewhere around $80,000 a year in revenues. And it cost us more to do that service than we were making. So we presented all of the data to our board, and on June 12th, they voted to discontinue that. And it's not, and as Tony said, those rides, they don't go away. There are other providers for it. It's just that we are not set up and structured to do that kind of service. It costs us more than it's worth.
I have a question for both of y'all. How many clients does that impact for the HOP?
Well, I think what Tony's trying to say is 0, because there are other providers who will pick them up. But as far as us, if we did, say, 80,000 last year, that would have been about 40,000 passenger trips. I can't tell you how many people that is.
Is that a good estimate, 40,000 passenger trips for an EMT for 1 year?
Give or take, yeah.
And do you feel fully, I think that the reason I'm asking that is that even though that's going to be a transition happening with the HOP, I think that that's still an issue for transportation needs for our group here. So that's why I'm curious to see how it's going to flesh out for the clients that are actually using the NEMT.
Yeah, we've tried to minimize the impact of that over the past year, I would say. The way this system works is the brokers, Health and Human Services turns those trips over to the brokers. The brokers send them out to operators such as ourselves. It's up to us whether we accept those trips or not. So roughly a year ago, we started scaling back on how many we would accept, and we've been scaling back. So, and when we reject a trip, they'll send us an email that says, hey, we've got somebody to go tomorrow. If we look at our schedule, if all of those vehicles are busy, we decline that trip. It just goes to another operator. So somebody else picks it up, MedLift or whoever.
Yeah, we stopped doing non-emergency medical transportation in the rural division last year. Because it was, you're talking about extremely cost efficient because of the fact we were traveling so much distance and actually keeping a driver out of the systems, like I was talking about the school. So we're taking dialysis to another town, in some cases outside of our district area, which is the reason why that cars picked up quite a bit of our western side, is because of the fact that they were going into their area versus us. We were going in their area with our bus sitting there for 3 hours or 4 hours at a time period, not doing anything, waiting for those clients to get back, because again, it had a scheduled time. Once that client finished coming off from dialysis, we had a certain time that we must be there to pick them up. So if we came back into our service area about an hour away, we'd never make that time schedule, and we'd lose our efficiency. So slowly what we have been doing has been whittling away at doing the longer distance trips, because we quit doing them going down to Austin and et cetera this past year also. So it's really just the local trips that we're having, but the problem is the reason why we can't give you exact is because we have been just dwindling it down to where we're not getting that many trips. And we actually noticed it when we started doing the change of everything, where we were getting less trips sent to us. So we knew the provider was already pulling trips from us as a good standard.
Thank you for that information.
Just to have their back on that, when you do an EMT trips, you have so many providers that have different guidelines. That
Yes.
require different exact pickups and different timing. It is very difficult. We have 4 different providers that we work with, and it is hard.
It's very, very difficult.
Brooke, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I certainly feel their pain. It is a huge challenge, and it is very capital intensive to do the NEMT side, especially when you're working with those providers. But I will, reiterate that, they're not dropping anybody. There are providers out there to take those and get those done. The one thing that we're trying to do on our side is elevate those providers to be at a certain level. There's got to be a standard. Right now in Texas, there is no standard. And so that's one thing that we're working on is creating a standard for those NEMT providers to provide quality and safe and reliable service. But I can see why y'all have left, and y'all aren't the only ones. I mean, EMS is dropping out. The new Medicare, Medicaid rules that have just dropped especially for EMS. EMS is getting out of it altogether. They're no longer doing it because reimbursement is not there. So we have been working with multiple fire department and cities to try to help those citizens, who are calling 911, who don't really need them, but they need to go see a doctor, get critical care. Working with those cities and fire departments to get that done. It's a huge challenge.
Do you know about how many are in the area besides, you guys are getting out of it? So do you know about how many other than y'all are here that do that?
They can use Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, they can use Uber and Lyft too. I think last count that we saw, there was actually 5 major companies in our area. So that's just the major companies. There are a lot of small mom and pop, 1 or 2 vehicles, family members that help them, et cetera. So it's really hard to say total number, but just we know of 5.
George, I think, had a question.
So I just I know with the transition with Central and like promoting this free event, because I saw it in this morning on one of the channels, Channel 6. Has there been any confusion as far as jurisdictionally, like if it's free, have they called you, are you getting free rides there or anything like that?
No, sometimes I've gotten confused, like thinking that our bus goes to different directions than what they do, and we just tell them, no, you have to call the hop for that, or if they call from a different county or something. But other than that, no.
I think that transition has gone
Pretty smooth.
well.
Yeah.
I mean, given all the things that could have gone wrong, I think it's gone well, actually.
And the second part is back to the emergency transportation component. How would we be able to know and monitor just hearing this, but to be an effective part? Because I think that's a known hearing all these issues, but is there another people we need to invite to the table so that we're more aware of the impact?
You know, all those statistics are captured, but they're captured in different locations. Each company keeps their own stats. The brokers, I think, keep their own stats, and then it all, in theory, feeds up to Health and Human Services. Good luck getting
I don't know if
numbers
y'all
there.
noticed that either. We're having trouble, it's taking longer to get our drivers when we hire new drivers to get them approved to drive, because now each insurance company that works under that broker has to approve our drivers to drive. So now it's taking up to 2 weeks to get our drivers approved to get behind the wheel to drive those trips.
To be blunt about it, in an effort to help people, the government has created tenfold levels of bureaucracy, and it's done nothing but hurt people who need the ride. I mean, to be blunt.
Yeah, so to answer your question, George, there's not a person. It would be several of the different brokers that are out there. You're talking having remote care in here, Safe Ride, Access to Care. There's a couple other ones that are also providers.
I would think the insurance
Unless there's an
companies have to
HHC,
be involved.
yeah, Health and Human Services, unless they consider a rep that would actually do it.
Does Health and Human Services have a place you could go and see who all are providers, or is it just list the brokers for the program from non-emergency medical transport? You know?
I
You
don't know,
contract
we've
through
had 2
Health and Human
brokers be
Services?
bought out this year.
Yeah.
Well, like if you're a provider, do you contract with HHSC or do you contract with the provider or with brokers?
Contract directly with the broker, yes.
Okay.
And those brokers can pick and choose. That's the hard part. We had a contract with one broker that never sent us a trip at all.
Okay.
So,
HHSC, we're under them as well, and they send us we probably had 2 trips from them, and then they never pay us.
That's a problem.
yeah. So, does anybody operate outside the broker in the state of Texas? I don't think so. I think everybody has to go through a broker system.
If they're going to be reimbursed.
For Medicaid or Medicaid.
Right.
It's for Medicaid.
Right.
You know,
Correct.
we do contract with private insurance companies, you know, the major insurance companies. They will call us and say, we have a member that we're giving 6 months worth of trips and we'll manage that for them. But outside of Medicaid, you have to go through the broker.
So, right, you're on Medicaid, you have your Medicaid card, you look on the back, you call the number to schedule a non-emergency transportation. So they are calling essentially to the broker, and the broker is sending it out to the providers. So not top level from HHSC to y'all.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to.
No,
Yeah. Population, I get cost savings.
And if they change their insurance company, you can
Yes.
change their broker.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Your Honor, let me ask a question here concerning advocacy and what we heard is various bureaucracy and stuff. On one of my committees, I invite a civil-haired legislator who can do advocacy, as you know, as a COG, it's this, all they can do is listen to these concerns, but then how do we address this because if it's policy that doesn't make sense, how is that gonna be addressed? Because that's what some of the issues I faced in the aging side of things. You know, reimbursements for home delivered meals were $4. We hadn't changed that in 30 years. You know, we had a legislator come in and said, hey, we increased it to $6. There's things about the way we work and how we do things are not very efficient and very effective. Does this body represent any advocacy to address those issues, Your Honor, or is that outside of our scope?
I think as a body, we can invite those advocacy folks. Ultimately, this is an advisory group for the CTCOG Executive Committee, who in turn, has the ability to have those people as well, and have Jim have some conversations. But this is an advisory committee to the executive committee. So we can invite the Silver Hairs legislature or whatever. I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around. I know in 2014, it was a problem when this brokerage system took place, but, you know, we're here 11 years later, it's working. There's going to be no impact at the end of the day to these people that the hop's not serving anymore. So I don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze to go down a path to determine what we need to do. They're going to say the brokerage system is working. It's worked for 11 years. It is what it is. If people aren't. Now, for the other concerns about having somebody with you, we can continue those conversations. But for this specific non-emergency medical, it doesn't sound like people are being left out in the rain at a bus stop. If there were, that would be a much different conversation.
In 2014, when those rules went into effect, they went to the brokerage system. Most large public transit providers, agencies, dropped them at that point. They just dropped it. Did exactly what we did 11 years later. It's just, we've hung on for cash flow purposes all this time. But at some point, even if you're trying to just maintain cash flow, at some point, if you're not making money, you've got to stop. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. And it doesn't work in conjunction with nonprofit public transportation agencies. I think it does work for private companies that don't have the training requirements that we have. They don't have the certification requirements. A lot of things are required of a public entity such as ourselves that are not required of private companies. And the private companies don't incur all those extra costs, so they can still do it and make money.
Anything else from the hop? No? Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Sorry so long.
No, you're good. Okay, I think we're good then.
We will, thank you guys both for presenting. We will go on to staff updates.
Well, thank you. Thank you so very much. I wanted to share a letter. Felicia had shared this with you several months ago. It's a handwritten letter by someone that uses the hop that she got a hold of, and she shared it. So that copy is in your packet. But my favorite part is the hop is very nice on the inside and clean. So I can go places with the microtransit system, and the big hop bus didn't go. So that's a big shout out for y'all. Didn't come through your channels, but we always love to give the shout outs when they're due. And so update, federal and state updates. I'm not sure, do you have anything that you'd like to add on these?
I don't have anything on these right now. The only thing, I don't know how many folks around the table are aware of the Gut Ride program that CTCOG managed over the past year. Of course, we had some hiccups in the beginning getting it kicked off. Unfortunately, that grant was not picked up again by TVC, and it officially ended yesterday. CTCOG, though, we're still having conversations with TVC to possibly get an extension to that grant or see what we can do to continue that service in our region. For the short term, though, the COG will be funding that program through June. We are not accepting new riders for the program, or through July. But we're not accepting new riders for the program until we can see if the Veterans Commission is going to authorize us to extend it or renew our grant or something. We just, ultimately, at the end of the day, we were unable to meet the 60% metric that they had set by the deadline for auto renewal, even though we've met 100% of the milestone that we said we were going to meet by the end of the grant. So I think there are some additional conversations that are going to be held in Austin with us possibly visiting a commission meeting in the middle of July if needed to try to keep that program in our region. I mean, we had over 115 people that signed up to use the program through the HOP and different, different folks in the rural areas. So that we're still working on how do we move that forward if we can. If not, I don't want anybody to be shocked if they see an announcement from the COG mid-July that says that the vet ride program is officially ending because we weren't able to secure funding. But I just want to make everybody aware that we are internally doing what we can, at least through the month of July, to keep the program afloat until a final determination can be made.
On that same topic, George, I did get your email yesterday about that ILA. I'll change that date from August 1 back to July 1.
Right.
And resend it.
We're looking to use Title III funding to help cover anyone over 60.
Yeah.
And we have another fund for non-elderly that we're leaving this month.
No? Okay. Any other member updates, discussion, comments, questions?
There's someone online that has a question?
A comment. It said that United Healthcare uses Modificare for value-add transportation for members.
United Way?
Modificare is a broker.
Okay. Thank you.
Kelly, do you want to report on the air quality?
Oh, yes. So the average for June, in Colleen was 60 and in Temple was 56, which is below that national standard, and it's tracking pretty normal as to the yearly. So we're not off track or anything like that. We're right on schedule. Thank you, Kelly.
Any other member comments, questions? Online? No? Online, yes? No? No, okay, sorry. Okay, so our next meeting date is going to be, is it October? October 7th at 9:30. So we will, do we need a motion to adjourn? Motion?
You don't.
No motion to adjourn. So meeting adjourned 10:59, right on time.